and welcome back to the Shreya Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Ashley Hendrickson, and I have a very special guest here today, Dr. Barrie Tan. Thank you so much for taking the time, Dr. Tan. It really is an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Ashley. Looking forward to our time together and discuss the various things that you have in mind. Thank you much.
Me too. So Dr. Tan is hailed as a trailblazer, and he is the world's foremost expert on vitamin E. A scientist first and foremost, he earned his Ph.D. in chemistry and biochemistry from the University of Otago, New Zealand, and then spent about 10 years as a professor at UMass. He's the founder of American River Nutrition and was the very first to introduce tocotrienols and their benefits to the nutrition industry. He also developed the first ever tocopherol-free tocotrienol product, which was derived from the annatto plant, and we'll learn more about that soon. Beyond tocotrienol, Dr. Tan's research expertise now spans into geranyl, or GG for short, a critical and endogenous nutrient essential for healthy aging, and into lipid-soluble nutrients like CoQ10 and omega-3s. Dr. Tan continues to collaborate with numerous universities worldwide to further his research on tocotrienols. So again, Dr. Tan, thank you so much for being here. I've heard you speak a few times, and I'm very excited to share all you have to share about this with our audience. So just kind of looking at vitamin E, can you just give us the very basics? What is it, and why is it so important for us? What is it doing for us when we take vitamin E?
Vitamin E is a class of two sets of compounds, the tocopherols, which is found in a cereal box, and then tocotrienol, which is less known to us. And I focus on the tocotrienol piece, the lesser known ones, because it had properties tocopherols do not share. Most people know vitamin E as an antioxidant. So that's at the basic level. And then that antioxidant need discussion, but we'll come to that later. So, but most people do not know alpha tocopherol, which is the most famous of the vitamin E, was known not as an antioxidant, even though it is. When chemical compounds have the vitamin status, it must be something our body needs, our body does not make, and the lack of that compound, then a disease will form. That's a definite, old classic definition. And because of that definition, very few compounds have the superstar status of a vitamin. So if I were to ask audience, why is alpha tocopherol known as a vitamin? I don't know what you were going to say. Probably you're going to say antioxidant. They all have antioxidant property for sure, but that is not what makes it a vitamin. Vitamin E, as in alpha tocopherol, is known as a vitamin because it brings the fetus to full term. So it brings the fetus to full term because during the growth of the fetus, so people, scientists dub that as a birth vitamin. Like vitamin D would be a sunshine vitamin. So E would be a birth vitamin, but most people don't think of vitamin E as a birth vitamin. At the growth of the fetus, they need a lot of oxidative protection. And that's why, but it is known as a birth vitamin. So anyway, 4 tocopherols and 4 tocotrienol. So with those 4, then you can now see that the tocopherol was known 40 years before, and then tocotrienol came later. So when I started my career in the 1980s, tocotrienol were just bursting into the scene. And even now, fast forward another 40 years, most people don't know much about tocotrienol. Hopefully, during this session, we can clarify some of the differences.
Yeah, I hope so, because you're right. That's where I think probably most of us see tocopherol on the back of cereal boxes, and it says mixed tocopherol.
Mm-hmm.
So you've talked a little bit about tocotrienols, but what is it? What's the difference, and why do we want to be looking for products that contain tocotrienols? And is it okay to take them both together?
Yeah. So this is a structure of a vitamin E here.
Okay.
And then if I purposely go out of here, that this part here, where my finger is pointing,
Uh-huh.
sorry, when my finger is pointing, that's the antioxidant, that piece. Then if
Okay.
I go the other way, so this is the tail. This tail here differentiate a tocopherol from a tocotrienol. If I bring closer to you, you will see my finger is pointing here. There's a
Uh-huh.
double bond here. And then there's another one here where my finger is pointing here. So if you
Uh-huh.
look, and then at the end here, there's another one here. So
Yeah.
because of these three, and hence the word triene just means three double bond in the tail. A tocopherol does not have a tail like this. A tocopherol will be a saturated tail, and the black color is the carbon, the white color is the hydrogen. So when you think of this vitamin E, now that I mentioned physically the difference, this part is important. If you think of the human cell, we have about 38 trillion cells that generally look like this. Muscle cell is stratiated like that, but otherwise most cells look like this. And then there's a cell wall, and inside the cell would be the nucleus. They make you look like your parent, me look like my parent. And then you have the mitochondria to produce energy, and then they have other stuff in the cell for the cell to function as a basic engine of each cell there. Now, for this cell to function properly, it has a proper cell wall. And the cell wall, just think of the cell wall as a gated community. If the community is gated well, the community will function well. The nutrients will go into the cell, and the waste generated from here will exit the cell. That only would be true if you have a proper cell wall. Why do I mention cell wall? 80% of the cell wall is fat. And inside the cell wall, you have things that protect the cell wall. I'm trying to explain the word antioxidant in the simplest possible way. I'm trying to get.
Yes.
So in the cell wall, it needs to be protected, and 80% is the fat. And each of us are encouraged by the government and others to have a balance of three major food groups:
Mm-hmm.
fat, protein, and carbohydrate. And most of us know not to take too much carb because it increases sugar, not to take too much fat because we don't want too much body fat. And then we are encouraged people to take more protein. I'm sure you cover a lot of this in your podcast.
Yes.
But of the three, fat is the one that is easiest to go bad. If you don't believe me,
Ah.
just drive past a roadkill on a hot summer day, or just have a stick of butter outside and go back and smell the stick of butter on a summer day after 2 hours. You will know that. You can put a hunk of steak out on a hot summer day uncooked, and you go out a couple of hours, you can also smell some off flavor. Even the off flavor from the steak, it is still from the oxidized fat, not the protein. Eventually, however, the protein would go bad and carbohydrate would go bad. If you have a mashed potato out and leave it for a couple of days, it would also go bad. So anything that go bad, oxygen had damaged it.
Yes.
But the thing that first go bad of all the three group would be fat. And now go back to the cell wall. 80% of the cell wall is fat. Now, we commonly said that, oh, I have too much fat, and then you grab your love handle or some parts of your body. That's correct. However, that only is a small portion because you can hold it onto it. But most of the fat are in places we cannot see, such as the cell wall. And since we have 38 trillion cells, which approximate to 5,000 times the population of the Earth, it is not possible for us to know where the cells are. However, in the cell wall are molecules that protect the cell wall from going bad. Remember, a good gated community helps the community to live well. Good things go in, waste goes out, like that. And in the 1980s, there was an Austrian professor. The Austrian professor was trying to figure out what is it that is stationary in the cell wall to protect the cell wall from not going bad. he found, his name is, I think is Helmut Esterbauer, a very German name, Esterbauer, Esterbeuer, something from Austria. He discovered that more than 90% of the antioxidant that protect the cell wall, they are vitamin E molecule, a thought long forgotten. And less than 10% of them are things that you and I know as antioxidant, such as carotenes like lycopene, beta carotene, astaxanthin, stuff like that, and CoQ10. Other
Yeah.
than that, most any other thing, they are antioxidant, but they don't work in the cell wall. Let me now show you this molecule again and show you why that is so. You see this? I purposely go back. See
Yes.
that? If I go off the screen here, you can see the black and white. They are very fat soluble. So that sticks into the lipid membrane, the cell wall lipid membrane. And
Okay.
if you have an astaxanthin, for example, it would have an OH group like here, but then it's like a two-headed snake. You'll have an OH group here. So if you have an astaxanthin, it doesn't stick into the cell wall. It will be really awkward. It will stick out like this. See, they stick
Okay.
out the cell wall like that. So that
Uh-huh.
means it's kinky. It doesn't work like that. So you need one that is lipid soluble and one basically it looked like a sperm or a tadpole where the antioxidant head sticks out. So if
Okay.
there's oxygen coming in, it captures the free radical. And this thing here is anchored into the membrane so that it can move around the cell wall. Now, while I'm holding this, you can see a double bond here, a double bond here, a double bond here. So it's tri-ene. If this were to be a tocopherol, the tail will be longer. So
Okay.
it anchors deeply into the cell membrane and it moves around the cell slower. If it is a tocotrienol, it's spin around the cell 50 times faster. And for that reason alone, actually, it's not complicated. So a tocotrienol will fly around the cell wall to capture the free radical, the bad guys faster, like the oxygen, so that it will not destroy the cell wall, so that the gated community is better compared to a tocopherol because it anchors deeply, it moves around slower. So a simple way to understand that would be a tocopherol and tocotrienol, they both capture the bad guys. The tocopherol will behave like a policeman, a policewoman. They stay in a city and a town. But a tocotrienol would be like a state trooper. It will cover the entire state. That's it.
I love it. And it makes it so easy to start to understand how these things work differently. So you talk about how the tocotrienol helps to maintain like the integrity of the cell wall. Is that a
Mhm.
good way to say that? What are some of the conditions that we see manifesting when people have damage to their cell walls? What can vitamin E help to support in like a real life type of environment or
Yeah.
experience?
How about I try to give an example of something we can see and
Uh-huh.
then another example of something we cannot see.
Okay.
There's something that we cannot see. I'll start with the difficult one first. There's something we cannot see would be um, when the cell wall is not functioning properly, when all cells have a finite lifetime, when it comes time for it to be finished, it's supposed to die. And scientists call it apoptosis. An example would be red blood cell. Red blood cell is supposed to stick around for about 3 months, and after that, it should goes away. A platelet is about 2 weeks, and then it replenishes. That would be the shorter term one. The longer term one would be your bone cell. We call it long turnover. So the bone turnover will be one in every 24 months, long time. It just give you our body function fabulously and differently when they're functioning well. When they are not, for example, in the case of cancer, your normal cell gone whacked out. Let's say breast cancer. That's your normal cell, but something had changed in the DNA, and that breast cell is not dying. And not only that it's not dying, it grow about 100 times faster than the normal breast cell. See,
Mm,
you know where I'm going with it. In other words, it immortalize itself. It's
sure.
not dying, and then it's going, and then it's multiplying 100 times faster. That sounds scary. So like
Yeah.
that, so that would be an example of the gated community have lost its ability to contain its community, and it becomes something else, even though originally it's a cell of that organs or that part of that bone, like that. That's something you cannot see. Something that you can see would be on your skin. Many skincare products that put vitamin E to protect the skin so that the skin would feel more supple, and the skin would feel more supple because the skin is an organ exposed to the outside. So you have air to oxidize it, UV light, and then you have environmental dirt that come on it and pathogen that land on your skin that you have to wash. All these things argues that the skin is exposed to an environment that easily can be attacked. And when you add vitamin E, the vitamin E helps the skin to be protected. And in a super simplistic way would be when it's not supple, the skin is patchy and scratchy and chalky. So that's an example of not well protected, and the skin begin to peel because
Mhm.
the oxidative damage is going after the dermis and the epidermis.
And I think that's what most people think of when they hear antioxidant. It's skin health and skincare and anti-aging formulas. I first learned about vitamin E when I was in high school. I was in an accident and had some um, serious damage done to my knee. And as part of the scar treatment therapy, I was told to use vitamin E oil to help repair the skin and the damage that had been done to it. Um,
Yeah, now on the scarring tissue, that's a good point. Uh, um, uh, uh, some scarring tissue are longer damage, others are simple. If it's on the skin, then sometimes you apply dermatologically on the skin, it would work. Some scarring tissue, hopefully later on we will cover scarring tissue of the liver when people have fatty liver. We also study scarring tissue of an animal study where we have a cut and then we apply tocotrienol. It would help in the healing of the tissue, and then also prevent the scarring tissue of the collagen to be more precipitated, and then it won't go away like that. Like for example, when I was a child, I have a cut on my hand here on knife, and now 60 years later the scar is there. Luckily it's on my skin, so if were this to be inside your body, like in your heart or your other organ, then that would be a less desirable thing. And in the lung, it will be the least desirable because you want your lung to be very pliable and moving, or your heart to be pliable and moving. But I can live with the scar on here,
sure.
even though not desirable, and live in the scar with here. So yes, vitamin E works on scarring tissue, and tocotrienol is more able to do that than a tocopherol can.
Great. So you mentioned the annatto plant, and that's where you got this tocotrienol from. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that plant is and what makes this form of vitamin E unique?
Yes, I would love to do that, and like to do that pictorially. About 25 years ago, I went to South America, and this is a totally accidental find that brings me to think that this is more a spiritual thing, even though I am a scientist. I have no problem thinking of science and of things that are not scientific. I went to South America. The story is that Johannes Seedon, Professor Seedon at the Harvard University, then discovered that on the back of the retina of the eye, as light comes through here, is filtered in and then is laden with lutein and zeaxanthin so that it will filter out the blue light. Today, everybody knows if people want to be protected from macular degeneration, you take lutein and zeaxanthin. The year was 1994. Most people don't know this. And then I thought, oh, this is cool. And then I was already studying tocotrienol. I needing to take a break from tocotrienol. So I like this carotene thing because I love colors of life. So I went to South America looking for the giant marigold plant because the marigold petals in my book that you can download for free. You can see a younger me with hair. See that with the marigold petal. I did find it. I went there for this, but then while I was doing that here would be an example of a younger me. I saw this plant. It's a beautiful plant, annatto. Look hairy thing there. And then you can see it's got light pink color flower with lots of stigma. Very unusual plant. Furthermore, it's a known plant. We use in the US that color. Here would be an Inca child. He's
Uh-huh.
decorating his hair. The annatto seeds here, you can see here. And then they put in their marking of the society and the rank. And then it is definitely an Amazonian plant. Here would be an annatto plant with the seeds that you see, like the size of a grape seed. And then it's an Amazonian tree frog. The frog is no more than the size of a dime. So this is a
Oh,
very,
wow.
it is a lot. I went way back to take the picture because you can see the frog is not happy with me getting too close. And if it jump off, then I lose my National Geographic shot. So I didn't want to do that. And then here would be a picture, a lovely picture of annatto. If you see carefully, if you were to pretend you make the stain, you see, it stained the thing here.
Huh?
This is a very unusual plant. I saw this when I was looking for the lutein and zeaxanthin in the marigold petal, totally different. And about 20 feet away from me, I saw this plant. And if you look at this plant, the color is Bixen, annatto color. We use this to color cheese and stuff like that. So it's well known in the yes, very sanitized use. But I removed the color thinking that it must be a powerful antioxidant that protect it. The reason the plant make it like that without any flesh, you notice that the plant, the fruit have no flesh. It just
Uh-huh.
got a bunch of seeds like that. And all the fruits that we eat, whether it's pineapple, apples, oranges, pear, is always a fleshy component. So in the case that we'll swallow, pardon me for saying it, we swallow the seeds and then we poop the seed and then that's where they procreate. That's a standard procedure of the plant. But with this, there isn't any fruit there, any flesh there. So it makes this a seed very a floral smell. So it deceives the birds of the air and the frog, and so that they'll swallow the seed whole and then procreate the seed in that way.
Interesting.
In order for them to do that, they have to make sure that the color and the smell is there, thinking that it would be a fruit. So in order to protect the color, I surmise that they may have a powerful antioxidant. At the time, I thought it was going to be a polyphenol. There are many polyphenolics plants make, but surprisingly, it is a vitamin E molecule, and more surprisingly, it is a tocotrienol, and most surprisingly, it only contained tocotrienol and no tocopherol. So I knew, remember, I didn't go to South America looking for this plant. I was looking for the pebble. So I felt that was about 25 years ago, actually. So I feel very grateful. And then the clinical study yield the fruit of my findings. So it's kind of meant to be. I'm not at heart a medicine man, and I can't speak a word of Spanish. And there's lots of this kind of thing in Asia, but that was not where I went. But where I went was in South America. So I felt that there's something special. It's meant to be. So I persisted on studying tocotrienol. Hopefully, before your session, and you can ask me when I removed the color. And then I found the tocotrienol, which is what I was looking for as an antioxidant. And then that would have been a great finding. So when I get all the vitamin E out, I still found 2%, 1 or 2% something on the bottom of the pot. And then that was the compound geranyl, geranol, GG. So I meant I was going to retire. Then when I found this GG, I'm going to stick around and do more research work. So hopefully towards the end we can come back to the GG piece. But yeah, that was the finding. So the plant makes the tocotrienol to protect the color from degrading, so that the plant can use the color seeds to procreate itself.
So interesting. And I'm, for one, very glad that you didn't retire, because what will we do without this amazing product? Um, we will get into the GG because I think that's a really fascinating subject to discuss as well. But it sounds like to me, literally anyone and everyone could be benefiting from using tocotrienol in a healthcare regimen. Are there specific conditions that you think benefit more than others? Is it something that we all need to be learning about and adding to our healthcare routines?
Yeah. I will mention the kind of clinical studies that we have done. They are mostly in the general area of chronic conditions like that.
Okay.
But you also ask, should anybody be taking, and probably asking how much? I'll answer that easy part first. If a person have no chronic condition, then you are well blessed. Be grateful. Then you would take this 100 to 200 milligram as an antioxidant protection, like the way we describe the protecting of the cell wall. So you don't have any other thing, just making sure that your body function properly, where the cell wall is good. So 1 to 200 milligram, depending on your body weight. Nothing ill if you take slightly more or this or that. In the clinical studies we have done, we study people with dyslipidemia. That means that the cholesterol and triglyceride moderately high, this and that.
Mm-hmm.
Then probably more like 2 to 300 milligram. We also study people with pre-diabetes, where the sugar is normal high but not high enough to be diabetic, and then the inflammation is slightly increased. Also 2 to 300 milligram. Then we also study with people with diabetes. Then perhaps in the diabetes study, about 3 to 400 milligram. And then in the last group, well, second last group, we study people with fatty liver. These are all cluster of things, what we call metabolic syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
People who have fatty liver disease, and also men and women who have BMI 30 to 35, which means that they are clinically obese, like that, above
Correct.
the overweight session. So in these group, they are certainly saddled with inflammation. They're probably settling with dysfunction that are caused by steatosis, which means the storing of the fat in different organ. In the fatty liver, then it's in the liver, and in obesity is probably in the omentum and other parts of the body that is not desirable. And I don't mean physically. I have no desire to make any judgment, just trying to figure out how carrying huge amount of weight in fat is not a good thing for people like that. It's not that people need me to tell them. It's kind of self-obvious because of the burden on the body. So we are now doing the study on obesity in Texas. The fatty livers study is done in Pakistan. The fatty liver study is finished. And in those study, we gave people in the obesity study 300 milligram. I
Okay.
hope that will still work, because we were thinking more, but we stick with 300 milligram. And in the fatty liver disease, because the size of the liver is a single largest solid organ, we decided to study it with 600 milligram. And in that study, we published 3 studies: a 3-month study, followed by a 6-month study, followed by a 12-month study, like that. So we're very confident of that finding. And then the last group of study is, I don't know to think of this as a chronic condition. It is just not the big C word,
Yeah.
cancer. So we have cancer study in Denmark, and my colleague doing one in Florida. And in those study, people take much higher doses because it was in end stage cancer. So they take 900 milligrams. So I gave you the gamut. So in terms of condition, I discussed that. we cannot tell people or recommend people do this because the FDA won't allow that because they're
Sure.
clearly disease condition. But we can do clinical study. So these are the clinical study that we have done. Very excited about that. Very grateful. I shouldn't say that I'm very proud of it. I'm just grateful that I'm able to do this kind of study and tell people, and people can go on the internet to suss this kind of studies out. Or when you go download my book, I cite them so you can easily go. If you not talking to me, you can certainly send me an email at American River Nutrition. We can try to give you the paper. Or if you just do a Google search, annatto tocotrienol and this disease or annatto tocotrienol that disease, you find this kind of study yourself. Now in the internet world, people can find this thing out. You can easily fact check me.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And there's so much information out there, which is why it's important to get people like yourself on the podcast, because really my mission here is to educate and empower people. So you mentioned fatty liver, and that's something that I do kind of want to focus on, and the prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, because I do believe that people sort of are still of the mindset in general that these may be genetic conditions. And well, my grandpa and my mom had diabetes, so of course I'm going to have diabetes. And there's just so much that we can do to take control of our health and to start to improve our conditions. Now, that being said, obviously nothing that we're talking about here in terms of the annatto product or the tocotrienol is intended to treat or cure or prevent any particular disease or condition, but it can be a very powerful tool in helping people improve and take charge of their health and live these long, healthy, vibrant lives, right?
Mhm.
If you are interested in learning more, you can check out our website too. Designs for Health carries one of the annatto products, which I have right here, in the 150 milligram dose, which I took this morning, as I do every day. But let's look at those conditions, the fatty liver and the type 2 diabetes, because I do think that that's something that's really, unfortunately, very prevalent in society. So how does it work? What are you finding in the studies that this product can help shift for people?
Yeah, this is so you asked several things at one time. So I try to remember as I go along to answer some of them.
Yeah.
When we take a diet with very high fat, for example,
Yes.
high carbohydrate also have some remarkable resemblance in this, but high fat is easier. So when we take high fat, and this high fat are circulating in our body, we certainly need fat to live. We cannot live without it. But when we take too much fat, so first these fat get oxidized in our body and they become free fatty acid. In other words, they are not fatty acid that bound like a triglyceride, like an oil or fat. They come off. So when we become free fatty acid, the body have an unknown reason they flux. That means they go this free fatty acid flux. That means it goes straight into the liver. When it gets into the liver, they stitch back again and becomes fat. So this is how in other words, the fat is recruited into the liver. The liver is not tolerant to high fat. If you think of meat that you eat, 95% fat-free meat is considered very lean, very, very lean like that. The liver cannot tolerate more than 5% fat. I know most Americans don't eat chopped liver, but if you see a chopped liver, they are very lean. So fatty liver is not a good sign. But anyway, the fat goes to the liver. So we can have ultrasound and scan on the liver and can see the extent of fat that is in there. And then if the fat continue to increase, it's going to disrupt and disable the liver cells. And then the liver cells will begin to form fibrosis. In other words, simplistically scarring tissue. Scarring tissue, when they form in the liver, they become irreversible. So that's why when people have fat, if your doctor tells you, there are different measurements. So now that to give you the context, how do we do this study? I remember that I said that we did a 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month study. There are all the different reasons why we did that. In the 3 month study, we did not know actually if it's going to work. I don't have this tocotrienol I discovered is not God. I don't know this. I got to do this. So I could, and in many things that I've tried, I have tested things and it failed. So it's not always work. So we did a 3 month study because we didn't know. So in a 3 month study, we noticed that usually doctors or health professional would ask, we got to do a blood work on you because I'm thinking that maybe we should just see your liver. Why would the health professional suspect that? If a person come in to see the health professional, they are shaped like an apple. It then will worry them somewhat. If they shape like a pear, it's not congratulatory, but it is okay because the size is not where the organs are. If the
Hmm.
size is where the organs are, like that of an apple, is worrisome.
Yes.
I don't need to elaborate. You know what I mean. It's written all over the internet. So they'll do a blood work. So when you do the blood work, the doctor is now making judgment on your blood work, not based on any shape and size. So when they see the liver enzymes go up, and so these are stress liver enzyme, not
Hmm.
very good. So we look at liver enzyme in the 3 month, and we look at the C-reactive protein, a measurement of inflammation.
Yes.
And after 3 months, they drop. A good sign.
Yeah.
Something else happened on the side. My colleague told me, but I didn't want to pay attention, even though it was statistically significant. So I decided that we have to do a 6 month study. Why? Because the organ is the largest in the body. So we continue to do the markers that I mentioned to you. Now we have ultrasound to scan. So we now can measure steatosis, which means the fat in the liver. So we
Yes.
notice that the fat in the liver egress out of the liver, a good sign, as well as all the other markers I mentioned to you, oxidation of the fat, C-reactive protein again, and as well as the liver enzyme, they all drop. So the sign is good. And as well, this thing that I didn't look for, it dropped again. So I said, okay, I'll pay a little bit better attention. So finally, I decided that I should do a 12-month study. And the reason I wanted to do a 12-month study, I wanted to know when the organ of the liver is so large, it's going to be sustainable. I think that the liver is probably about 15 pounds. I don't know for sure, 15 pounds. I think the brain is about 6 to 9 pounds. And then the lung is also big, but the liver is the biggest one. Let's say 15 pounds. I wanted to be sure that something is sustainable over 12 months. Now, 12 months doesn't mean that if you say a 12-month study and 12 months is over. See, this is for the audience. When a scientist or a medical doctor do a 12-month study, it's probably going to be 3 years because you have to recruit people. And when you recruit people, they have hepatitis C. And then they have liver cancer. You have to exclude them because you are not studying people with hep C or liver cancer. They have to go and see the oncologist and somebody else, not you.
Sure.
It look like that. So by the time you get your recruitment, your 1 year is over. And then the last person you recruit is going to be the last person on the other end. So the first one you recruit start the study. So you have your 12 months to recruit, 12 months in the study, and 12 months to slowly phase out. Your 12-month study is going to look 3 years. So we patiently waited. The 3 years was over. I got happy news for us, including myself. In the 12-month study, we found not only the steatosis dropped, the liver enzymes dropped, the inflammation dropped. We also saw that the fibrosis decreased. And then that thing that is on the side also dropped. It came from my colleague. And it's very simple. We saw that in the 3, 6, and 12 months, all the patient lost weight. The reason I was not comfortable saying that at the beginning, because I did not want the consumer to grab it and say that it's a weight loss product. Because the notion of a weight loss product usually happen in 1 month or less. I did not have a study. The shortest study I had was 3 months. However, truth be told, in 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months, they consistently lost 10 to 15 pounds. That's a fact.
Oh.
So with that weight loss, then I'll pass it back. Sorry, I took too long.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
The reason on the weight loss is not so much implicitly a weight loss, it's more that the body metabolism is so out of kilter. So when it come back to balance again, as a consequence of that, the body is able to take care of itself, and then the weight loss happen. So it is a product of the body coming back into balance. But to a person who is overweight and fatty liver, a weight loss is nothing to sneeze at. It's a good thing. So I'm very grateful.
Yes, and that's amazing, right? And it is really a happy side effect of taking good care of your body, which is what we're trying to help people learn how to do, because it's just not out there enough. It also, to me, makes sense that those markers would come down and that they would lose weight, because fat is where we hold our toxins, and our liver is responsible for processing toxins. So if it's overburdened with extra fat, then we've maybe got a toxicity issue, which could create inflammation and hold weight for that reason as well. So it makes sense.
That's a very great point. What you just said, because the liver is functioning properly, the liver is able to detoxify properly. I didn't think about that. Good point. So as the body detoxifies, then that is another added component for the body functioning properly like that. We did not measure detoxification in that manner. We'll probably need to measure it in the urine, but we just simply noticed that the C-reactive protein drop. So it's just really a good sign that there's reduced inflammation.
Absolutely. And that's really the root of all disease anyway, isn't it? Inflammation
Yes.
and toxicity. And we're just bombarded with toxins in our environment, unfortunately. We talked a little bit about GG, but I'd like people to understand what this is, why it's important, and why it's so exciting, all the different functions it can play in the body, and why it's something they may want to look into and learn a little bit more about.
Yeah. Gigi, maybe another time you can do a longer interview of me and Gigi, particularly with our clinical study that we are doing with Design for Health on Gigi. We're starting that. I have a longer run with tocotrienol. That's why I have more data on it. Now, Gigi has a very interesting background. Gigi is an endogenous nutrient. So for the endogenous, for the audience, it just means GG is a compound our body makes. So
Yeah.
almost instantly when I say that, if GG is a compound our body makes, why does our body make GG? Great question. If you freeze on that question and hear me out, that itself is good enough. As opposed to some other compound our body don't make, so we need it to help us to treat condition. GG is a compound our body make. So it's as good as something it is to a vitamin. A vitamin is a compound. Actually, a vitamin a compound don't make. CoQ10 a compound make. DHA our body makes. CoQ10, DHEA, all these things our body make, but there are very few things our body make. GG is one of those almost unknown compound our body make. Our body makes GG to make three things I know. I am sure it does more than three things, but three things I know. I want to simplistically tell you. So if I back off from the screen to show you what I have,
Yes.
see here. In the front here, you can still hear me, right? In the front here is a molecule of GG. It's got an OH group here, red color, but the OH group is not an antioxidant. And then it's got a tail. The black color is the carbon, and the white color is a hydrogen, like that. So this is also very lipid soluble, and it's found in the cell membrane. And in the cell membrane, this compound is used to make two very important compounds in our body. One of them is coenzyme Q10. Just look at the tail. CoQ10 is like an albatross. It's a very large molecule. And I say it's an albatross in the truest sense. If you take CoQ10, your audience know about it. Everybody and their grandmother is talking about, the CoQ10 have to be bioavailable, blah, 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 like that. They say like that because they did not tell you what they need to tell you. CoQ10 is an albatross. So if you take CoQ10, most of the CoQ10 is pooped off. If you take 100 milligram CoQ10, and if you just take it without any aid to make it bioavailable, 1 milligram. 100 milligram, 1 milligram absorbed. If you make it bioavailable, say a 2 or 3 milligram, so when people say that their product of CoQ10 is 200% or 300% bioavailable, don't get impressed by that. It just means rather than absorbing 1 milligram, is 2 milligram or 3 milligram. So you give people 100 milligram, so 200% bioavailable 3 milligram, and that's very good. Think about it. You give them 100. Did you know that?
I didn't know that it was that small of a percentage in terms of what traditional CoQ10 supplements were. But
Yeah.
I'm very glad that you're mentioning this, because I talk a lot about how important it is to, when you are using supplements, to use quality supplements from reputable sources and to really know what you're taking, that they're being tested for pesticides and all these other toxins that could be in there, but really also to make sure that it matches the label claim and that you are getting a true benefit from the product.
Yeah. Now for that, I'll make a slight pitch. I'm not here to make strong pitches for Design for Health. Design for Health make really very good product, as you have come from your past experience. And usually if I recommend them something, they will. I told them that CoQ10 is not bioavailable. They got to figure out a way. And when they figure it out a way, I do not want them to put synthetic stuff in there, because then you just annul it. If, for example, I'm just trying to be exaggerating. If CoQ10 is so lipid soluble and you want to make it water soluble, just put detergent. If you just put detergent, the whole thing will become absorbed. But you put detergent, that's bad news for people. So I have to figure out how to do that. But anyway, another time, if you interview me on CoQ10, we make a product called tocotrienol that you can, for the audience, our company only makes 3 products. GG, which I'm talking now, and the GG we call GG Gold. And then for tocotrienol, we call Delta Gold because of Delta tocotrienol. So if you look at the back label, if you have GG Gold, it comes from American River. If it is tocotrienol from annatto, it's called Delta Gold. It comes from, we are the only company in the world making GG. We are the only US company making tocotrienol right here in Massachusetts. And then the third one is duoquinol. I'm proud of it. And the duoquinol is our CoQ10 ubiquinol plus GG. So now that's the only
super product. And I would love to have you back to talk about CoQ10.
Yeah,
I think that's one people are familiar with.
And then, so this compound here, GG, if you look at the background, the entire tail of CoQ10 is made from GG. So the body used GG to synthesize CoQ10 right on the cell wall. So the CoQ10 in the body is made in situ. In situ means in place. It was not like you take CoQ10, goes into the blood, and you pray that from the blood it go to the cell. It's a long way to get there, but GG, which is a much smaller molecule, 3 times smaller, it goes in the blood, goes straight into the cell, and in the cell it make CoQ10 1. The second one, GG, is made in the human body to make vitamin K2. Your audience probably know about vitamin K2 as in MK7. Everybody talks about that. And then they say that bacteria make vitamin K2 MK4, MK7, MK9, MK11. So the tail get longer and longer like that. That is all correct. Excuse me. With one exception. MK4 is the only manoquinone or the only vitamin K2 made inside the body in 25 to 30 different organs. That is a big deal. Where else the gut make different vitamin K2 with chain length from 4 all the way to 13. The bacteria makes it for good reason so that you have healthy gut and all that. All those are good. However, inside your body, the only vitamin K2 the body physically make is MK4. And this is how it works. I will tell you this, and you have to. Uh, I have, excuse me, I have something here. Ah, here it is. This is phylloquinone, vitamin K1.
Okay.
I purposely choose a green thing, and this is what you get from green leafy vegetable like spinach, like broccoli. When we take this, it get to the gut, and the gut will have a fixed amount of this thing go in to prevent clots, as vitamin K is known for, but only a fixed amount, not all of it. If all of the vitamin K that we take goes in, like a vegan does, they would literally clot to death. I have no vegan clot to death. So people don't think like that. I know I'm saying strange thing, but it is true. They don't clot to death. So only a fixed amount go in. So in the gut, the tail here is hydrolyzed, cropped off. So this tail flushed off. This is the ring. The ring would go in exactly the same length as the tail, the saturated tail of vitamin K is this GG, same length. Of
Okay.
course, I chose red for the reason is in mammal. And then the head from the vitamin K1 is together, and then I purposely snap for you to hear. So that is called a transfer. Transferred, that is MK4.
Okay.
If it were to be MK7, it would be this long, 9, 11, 12. But those are never made in our body. Only MK4. This is what I call. So if the body make MK4, the body make MK4 for a specific reason, as it did for the CoQ10 for a specific reason for making energy. This MK4, everything you read about MK7, MK4 does in the body
Mm-hmm.
without supplementing MK7, which means removing the calcium from the artery, putting the calcium in the bone so you won't have arteriosclerosis, removing the calcium from the gallbladder and from the joint so you don't have, or kidney, so you don't have kidney stone, gallbladder. So a short way then it sweeps the calcium into the bone and not leave it in the soft tissue. This is what MK4 does. This is one of the reasons why it does it. So I told you two. GG is used for the synthesis of MK4, CoQ10, and the last one,
The big one,
a big
right?
one, and is required for the synthesis of skeletal muscle protein. About 40% when we are younger, about 40% of our weight is muscle mass. As we grow older, it is masked by fat mass. So the muscle we have uh, osteosarcopenia.
Yes.
So we lose muscle mass, but instead it's masked by the fat mass that we have. And the reason we lost muscle mass is because there isn't enough GG and it's unable to synthesize a muscle properly. So if you take drugs such as statin drugs that specifically inhibit GG, and then you have myopathy. See, myopathy, something wrong with the muscle. or a woman go to menopause, take bisphosphonate drug to strengthen the bone. That it does, but when they do that, there is a weird side effect and not good at all. It's called BRONJ, bisphosphonate related osteonecrosis of the jaw, first discovered by scientists who see the older woman who take bisphosphonate. Basically, the jawbone get necrotic and break down, and then we have opportunistic infection. So the audience is encouraged. You type BRONJ, you can find all the study, and when you get down to it, it's very simple. The reason they have BRONJ taking bisphosphonate drug for anti-osteoporosis is the bisphosphonate inhibit so specifically the GG production in the jaw, such
Wow.
that the GG is destroyed in the jaw and is unable to make the protein for the jaw, and therefore the jawbone dies. That's it. So there you have it on GG.
Great. And you mentioned statins, and I definitely would love to have you back to talk a little bit more about that, because I do think that is very important for people to start to understand, because so many in our society do use statins. They are setting themselves up for lots of potential long-term issues, and using products like the annatto GG or the coconut is something that's really important for them to start to support their bodies while they're using those medications.
Yeah, while you're on that, thank you for bringing coconut out. Coconut, which we simply call duoquinol, dual because two things. We have GG and ubiquinol combined. So that is particularly good for somebody who's taking statin drugs because of the indication. We are doing a study now in Texas where we have people taking statin under a cardiologist care, working on a medical treadmill, and one group taking statin without GG and the other group taking statin with GG to see if the GG would mitigate the myopathy. So that is that piece. And of course, if you take statin drug, people know that the CoQ10 drop. And then now I just explained to you the reason the CoQ10 drop is because the statin inhibit GG. So you
Yeah.
have insufficient GG there to make CoQ10. So that one is not, it is biochemistry, you know. If you zap out the ability to make CoQ10, of course, now until now, people didn't know. So the audience now know, when I take statin drug, my CoQ10 drop, that's correct. But Dr. Tan explained the reason CoQ10 drop is because the statin inhibits GG, and so there isn't enough GG around to make CoQ10, and that's why the CoQ10 drop. I don't know yet if by simply taking GG is enough to boost the CoQ10 synthesis. I don't know yet. So until I do know, I think a duoquinol or coquinol is good. So anyway, if your audience come to your website, if you champion design for health product, they have all of this. There are other companies they sell them to, but going to design for health is just fine. If you go on the internet or if you go on my website, I list all the different companies that sell the tocotrienol of a Delta Gold, the GG of a GG Gold, or the duoquinol that we have. We just brand them because other people are not allowed to say coquinol because it's a design
Sure.
health product like that. But there are other people. But if you see that our name are there, that means that it comes from us. Maybe one last thing that to learn more, you can certainly come to my website, American River Nutrition, and you download. But if you go online to buy tocotrienol, first, you don't want to buy tocopherol. And more than 90% of the products are tocopherol. So therefore, you have less than 10% of the vitamin E product, tocotrienol. In the tocotrienol space, make sure you look not for rice bran tocotrienol or palm tocotrienol. They contain 25 to 50% tocopherol. And tocopherol is not working, and it even put brakes on the function of tocotrienol. You want annatto tocotrienol because it is free of tocopherol. So the gas pedal is on moving forward to do the job, but the brake pedal is not on and then resisting the moving forward, which palm and rice. By the way, palm and rice tocotrienol were also the two tocotrienol I discovered years and years ago. The reason I stopped, see, I'm slapping my own face. I discovered them. The reason I didn't do anything is because I don't know what to do with the tocopherol. It put brakes on the function until when I was in South America, like I told you the story of natto, I was elated. I found a compound that is totally free of tocopherol, and that's why the function worked as well as it did from all the clinical studies that we have.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. I think you probably all can understand why I wanted to introduce Dr. Barrie Tan to you. His passion and energy is contagious, and he definitely got me excited about vitamin E about 4 years ago now. As he mentioned, you can find more information on his website, American River Nutrition. If you are interested, you think these are products that you'd like to learn more about, you can email us at info@shreyawellness.com, or you can visit the website, shreyawellness.com. There is a link to a Designs for Health store there where you're able to have access to these products he's talked about, the annatto E, annatto GG. There's actually a blend, annatto E and GG, because they work very well synergistically. And the CoQ10 product, tocotrienol, he mentioned, will also be available on that website. So it was great to see you, great to learn more from you as always. I really do very much appreciate your time. It was a true honor. I'm a huge, huge fan, and can't wait to see what you have to share next. I would love to have you back to talk about tocotrienol and CoQ10 again, because I think that's super important. But until next time, thank you all for being here. Thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you heard today, please give us a like and share, and we'll be back next week. Have a good day.
Thank you. Blessings to all.